Hello, welcome on into the Baseball Insiders. I am Adam Weinrib, joined as always by FanSided MLB Insider Robert Murray, back live 3:30 Eastern time on a Monday to assess the baseball landscape a little bit. Which surprise teams do we believe in so far? Are there a few that we do not? Positive, negative surprises, mostly positive though. Couple of surprise positive teams emerging with some trends that I'm not sure I buy 2 weeks into the season, but a few might just be sustainable. Plus, Tommy Pham finds a landing spot, and it's not in the league you expected, but he'll be up soon. And Julio Teheran joins another big league team. How many will he play for by the end of the season? Joining me, as always, to talk me through all of the particulars is FanSided's MLB Insider Robert Murray. Thank you for joining me, dude.
Hey, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure. We got lots to talk about with baseball today. Tommy Pham finally signed. I apologize, Drew, for your Padres not getting Pham. I know you're going to be pretty disappointed about that, but a lot of stuff going on. But let's break it down here today, Adam. First of all, though, how are you?
I am good. Yeah, we are rolling. The season is 2+ weeks deep now, and several pitchers have been lost for the season already. We're going to have to talk about that on every episode, but we'll obviously address the Spencer Strider absence today as well. But before we get into all of that, DraftKings is offering a fantastic sign-up bonus for new users. New customers can place a $5 first bet on any sport to instantly claim $150 in bonus bets when you sign up with our code Baseball Insider. Best part is you'll receive your rewards even if your first bet loses. Using our code Baseball Insider not only gets you these bonuses, but it also directly supports our podcast. If you've been considering signing up for DraftKings, make sure to use the code Baseball Insider to maximize your first bets. This offer is only available to new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check the episode description for the full terms of the offer to see if you qualify. And if you're the kind of person who wants to bet on the over-under of the number of teams Julio Teheran pitches for in 2024, not sure they have that yet, but check it out. See if they've got what you want. Also, join the Discord if you have not. Multiple levels you can join at. If you're at the all-star level, you get priority questions on this show, which is especially pertinent when the trade deadline heats up and you get to be the ones to ask about your team first when the rumors really start flying. Also, it gets you access to the all-star Zooms, which we are going to try to do this week on Thursday. It's a private call for our all-stars. Get to hang out with us and ask us. You get our ears. You don't have to battle it out with everybody in the podcast. You just get to talk to us offline. We love doing that as well. So see some of you if you want to get in the Discord and you're not in there yet. Would love to have you. And once again, here's some folks from the Discord in the comments asking people who aren't in the Discord to join. We love to see it. Well, Robert, where do we want to go first? Surprise clubs, I think, is probably the best place to start and kind of the most fun place to start. A lot of early surprises, a lot of teams distancing themselves from the pack early. A few teams we thought might be good, but that have been even better than we imagined, banking some early wins that you can't take away. It might be good to start here on a team that you and I maybe differed on prior to opening day. I was cautiously optimistic about the Yankees, but a little bit nervous unless I saw some leaps. You were full on saying, hey, there's a really good chance that this team falls apart and misses the playoffs entirely, which was a part of my brain that existed too. But so far, 12-4, a weird late inning, defensive miscues yesterday. They drop a game. They could have swept the Guardians, who entered that series at 9-3 in Cleveland. I say that series is still a win. They swept a doubleheader. They are now 12-4 with a lot of sustainable good stuff. I'm going to say I believe in them moving forward, and I would go so far as to call them a legitimate contender. But where do you stand on the Yankees? What's your level of belief in them?
Yeah, I was pretty adamant when we were doing our prediction show that I thought that the Yankees had a realistic chance of missing the postseason, and all of a sudden they've come out of this thing roaring out of the gate. And when they were here in Arizona, and I got to be around that team, they had a different feel about them than any of the other teams that I've seen here in Arizona, both this year and also last year. And yeah, I mean, that's like, I'm just talking visiting teams, not the Diamondbacks and that by any means. But anyways, they just have the feel of a really good team, and they've been able to also do this thing without Garrett Cole. And I think that's why, or one of the reasons why I'm so high on this team, is that once they get Garrett Cole back, they're getting the best pitcher in baseball. And that just makes him extremely dangerous. There's a lot of different weapons they have offensively. It seems like they can always make the bullpen work, but the amount of talent that they have on that team, it's working right now. I expect there to be some sort of hiccups because they're not going to go 12-4 in 16 games for the rest of the year. I mean, if they did, then that's pretty good. But I'm extremely high on the Yankees, and I'm surprised. Actually, let me rephrase that. It didn't take me long to change gear on that. I thought it was going to take me a little while if it did, or if I did change gears. But yeah, they just have the look of a team that is serious about making a postseason run and trying to maximize potentially their one season with Juan Soto.
Look, they have problems. The infield defense was ugly yesterday and is in large part the reason why they lost that game. The bullpen doesn't miss bats. They are 28th in baseball in terms of strikeout percentage out of the bullpen. Almost every high leverage arm that comes in is below MLB average in that department. There are places for them to improve, and they improve the rotation when Garrett Cole comes back, if he does come back. Hopefully, in that case, you would move someone like Luis Gil to the bullpen and maybe solve that second issue ahead of the trade deadline as well. They're not a perfect team, but like you said, they do feel more well-suited to bounce back from tough games like yesterday and have the mojo to be able to concoct something that is a more powerful overall presence than they've been in recent years. And you and I both, I think, can already take an early victory lap on saying Juan Soto is slightly underrated as an acquisition.
Yeah, it's crazy. We're talking, I feel like the phrase generational talent is thrown around a little too loosely, but I feel like we can say that about Juan Soto. And people were just not talking about him as that game-changing elite player like they were when he was traded by the Nationals a couple of years ago. But man, I'll tell you, he was underrated, and now he's becoming properly rated again.
Yeah, people were talking about him like the Yankees just got some lineup balance. Like, oh, they got an all-star for the – no, they actually got Juan Soto, who's one of the most transformational players you could possibly add to a lineup. I just think that's important. This is not a Yankee podcast, though. We're not going to talk about the Yankees anymore. That's it. We're cutting ourselves off until they make a trade. I'm going to go ahead and say I believe in the Milwaukee Brewers in the NL Central, and I believe in the Kansas City Royals in the AL Central. I'm not sure. I'm not saying that I think the Royals are going to go ahead. Oh, all right, I'm penciling them in. Wild card run. They're going to do it. I'm just saying that I guess I have to stand by the Royals being an early season surprise because I had Cole Rig and Cy Young. But I think that too many people laughed at the offseason spending they did, sort of saying it's a 100-loss team. Why are you just putting lipstick on a pig? What are you doing? I thought we stopped doing that. We told cosmetics companies to stop putting lipstick on pigs. I thought that the Central was winnable. All it took to knock the Twins out of that top spot is sort of a bad Byron Buxton injury, a bad Carlos Correa breakdown. They don't really have the pitching to just run away with it. Look what we've gotten so far. Carlos Correa down for a little while. The Twins not, looking like the team many thought they could be. The Tigers look good, not great. It's a winnable division. And if Bobby Witt Jr. is going to do, I know a lot of Yankees people had hope that Anthony Volpe could do the year 1 to year 2 Bobby Witt Jr. transformation. And so far, Volpe looks pretty good in year 2. But Witt Jr. year 2 to year 3 after the big contract has been even better. 1086 OPS right now, 333 average, 4 bombs. Small sample size, sure, but you watch a game, he just can take over a game at this point for KC in year 3 at shortstop, playing great defense. I would say that I'm not going to give the Royals a playoff spot, but I'm going to say can contend for the Central, can contend for a wild card. I believe in that after being told I maybe shouldn't have before the season.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about the Royals here because entering the year, I thought they'd be better, but I also thought what was going to end up happening was they were going to be still too far out of it come the trade deadline, and then they would end up selling a lot of those pieces they signed for on short-term deals. And obviously that's a scenario that's still in play because we're still 2-3 weeks into the season here. It's still pretty fresh, but they look much better. And I think Bobby Witt Jr., if he continues playing like this, we're talking about a guy who could end up making his long-term extension look like a pretty good value for the Royals. And I think they were smart in getting ahead of that. Obviously, there's always risk in handing out the money that they did to sign Witt Jr. But if they ended up waiting for it, we're talking about a deal it could have been 5, maybe 400 million. It's always hard to know, but obviously we see the big dollar amounts that these high-end players are getting. It just continues to increase here. So I'm kind of projecting there, but they gave him a lot of money and it looks like a really good move. So I like the Royals pick there. For me personally, I'm following your lead. Milwaukee Brewers. That's a team that I've been on from the start of the year. I've been very high on them. They look like a team that, like they obviously have pitching. They have good pieces there. Freddie Peralta is one of the most underrated pitchers in baseball when he's clicking, and especially when his command is in control. But I'll tell you, that offense looks freaking good. That was a unit that I was pretty unsure about entering the year, and it was kind of me projecting when I picked them to win the division. But man, they look like a team that really can make some noise in that division. And who knows, maybe if they continue playing like this, can end up advancing into the postseason. So I'm pretty high there. And the last team that I'll pick here is the Pittsburgh Pirates. So shout out to you, Canyon. I don't see you in the stream here. So I guess
you picked the wrong one to miss, bro.
Yeah, no kidding. Because I'll tell you, the Pirates, you look at them, they have, that's just a really strong nucleus of like veteran players, but also young players. And then you got to imagine Paul Skeens is going to be in the majors before too long, because he looks really good in the minors to start the year here. They're really exciting, and they're not going to be a team that competes for like a World Series this year or anything by any means, but they're ascending, and they've got a really good thing building in Pittsburgh, and they've been viewing that as like the ideal scenario internally for quite a while. And it's now it's come to fruition. So good for them.
Good for them indeed. We said the same thing last year. It's going to take time. You're going to have to be patient, but we liked where they were heading already last year. We still like the direction. Robert and I are united on this, but I believe in the long-term vision in Pittsburgh. I'm not as sold on their start as I am the Brewers. I think another thing that we just need to take to pieces here before we go too far, Jackson Chourio, Jackson Holiday, Jackson Jobe for Detroit coming behind them, all very similar age. Why are all of these people named Jackson? Am I missing an easy one? Like with Michael Jackson? It can't be. Like, am I missing an easy home run Jackson from 2000 that just like, oh yeah, of course. Like, it's not Jordan after Michael. I can't figure out why we've just got this wave of baseball playing Jacksons. But if anybody knows and I'm dumb, please reach out. Famous Jet Jackson? I can't put it together. Jackson Merrill is the other one as well. Thank you, Andrew. There's a Jackson overload. It's a good name. But was it like the number one baby name of 2000 and I just didn't know? Because I don't understand what's going on here.
No, me neither. But I'll tell you, baseball is being run by Jacksons at this point. It's crazy. It's remarkable. And the amount of young talent that's currently in baseball right now is remarkable. Especially players named Jackson, just to continue to emphasize that point. But this is a good era, and it's only going to get better and better and better from here. And I'm also really anxious to see Jackson Merrill continue to grow with the Padres, because he's looked like one of their best players to start the year. He's only going to get better. And yeah, that's he's a player that I'm watching very closely throughout the year, and even just going forward, because he can end up being a foundational piece for them pretty quickly. And this is exactly why, despite being asked about him in trade talks over the last few years, they've held on to him, because they really like him. And they think he has a shot to be like a very strong core player for them.
And give, Reggie Jackson, if we want to talk about more Jacksons, apparently is the one pulling the strings in the Houston front office these days. He made a statement about why they didn't sign Blake Snell the other day. So yes, baseball is run by Jacksons, young and old, it would seem. Just wanted to put that on everybody's radar. If anybody knows the mystery Jackson and how this happened, and I'm just being dumb, let me know. There's a good possibility. Often the answer is just I'm being dumb. So it's a high probability. On the flip side, the teams who starts we don't necessarily believe in quite so much. And this does not have to just be a good start we don't buy. This could be a bad start we don't buy. And Robert picked a good one here that I definitely would have gone with. Probably would have been third on my radar. But I'm just going to throw cold water on the Guardians and Mets a little bit. It's been a nice rally back from the dead for the Mets, but I don't think you can just say, well, Jose Buto's the guy now. Like, I need to see more starting pitching before I believe in the Mets as anything other than sort of a mid-tier NL team, which is what they seem to be shaping up to be. I personally would say that even with their respective records right now, the Phillies are much more the real deal and playoff trusted and down the stretch battle. I would take the Phillies head to head over a team like the Mets, no matter what they're showing me. And the Guardians, just for caution's sake, always the Guardians print pitching, I understand. But look at the arms they're throwing at Fenway. this week. They had Tristan McKenzie going against the Yankees and looked tough. He looks sort of like a diminished version of himself right now. Without Shane Bieber, I don't know if that rotation can hold no matter how many arms they throw at you. And right now, they are in the top half of the majors in home runs. They had 16 entering today. Josh Naylor was slugging 673 entering today's 11 a.m. game that they won against the Red Sox. That's great. If they're going to contend, they need to be up there. And maybe Kyle Manzardo comes up midseason right when these numbers start to normalize and helps that number grow. Maybe Chase DeLauder we see at some point. But right now, they didn't change personnel so drastically that they should be that high in home runs. That feels like a number that's going to dip rather than continue to grow, which is why I'm going to harsh their buzz a little bit. But what are the teams that you're looking at for the dishonor of saying, pump the brakes? I don't know about this.
Yeah, first of all, I think you made some pretty strong points there, and I feel the same way about both those teams there. I will say, like, for me, the two teams, and I'm going to kind of go in a bit of a different direction. Like, teams that I don't buy is, and this is for different reasons, is the Angels. I don't buy them being a team that can stay in second place in that division. I think they're a team that is bound for regression at some point. Obviously, they're much less talented than they were last year. There's always questions surrounding Mike Trout's health. And I think that's a team that can end up kind of coming back down to reality, despite I think they're still even under 500 when I say that. It could be wrong. I want to say that's right. I'll fact check that real quick. But anyways, actually, I'll do it right now because I got it right here. Yeah, they're 7-8 in the division there, and they're in second place.
Well, they go to Fenway too. Reed Detmers, whenever he throws, you're like, maybe the Angels are legit. And then anybody else toes the rubber, and you're like, oh, no.
Oh, God. And that's been the case for them for as long as I can remember. I mean, they've had some better pitchers before, but their rotation's always been just like a huge just question mark there for the Angels. By the way, speaking of Fenway, how about that collision today with Tyler O'Neill? Holy cow.
Yeah,
that was not good.
And they're saying, like, he's just got stitches, he's okay, but not available to the media, shouldn't have been available to the media. He's still in concussion protocol. Be careful with that one, said somebody who had to watch Anthony Rizzo last year every day. Do not rush him right back before you have to. No. He's made his mark already. Give him some time.
Oh, absolutely. And 100%, you can't rush that. No. But the other one here is the Houston Astros. I don't buy their start because I think they're eventually going to turn this around. They're a team that when you've counted them out in the past, they've always ended up bouncing back. And obviously they got questions, especially with the rotation, and they got some other stuff surrounding that team that is less certain than it was in years past. But especially with the managerial change, because I think Dusty Baker brought some real calm when there was some storms before. And Joe Espada is well-versed in the organization, knows the players really well. So it's not like they're starting fresh with somebody that's new entirely. But having Dusty Baker guide them was huge. And this is going to be a huge strain on Joe Espada. And if they're able to get through this, and I think they eventually will, but and it's strange because you look at their start, they're 6-11 right now. Things are just not trending in the right direction, but I'm going based off our previous history. I'm going to say they end up bouncing back and get this thing back on track.
I would just agree. You cannot throw dirt on the Astros' grave until the season is over. It's just, there's no point. Let's get to the All-Star break, see where they are. I can't imagine that they're going to have pitching woes like this all year. Framber Valdez seems poised to come back. So Justin Verlander's bad rehab assignment, I'm not moved by that. We'll see what happens as the year drags on. They're still not a team you want to play. Jose Altuve hit 2 homers yesterday, just as a nice little reminder of like, oh, by the way, this is what I do. You know, if you're counting us out, I'm going to go ahead and hit 2 bombs. That's kind of how we operate. They almost came back down from 12-1 the other day. The offense is still explosive.
No, hey, by the way, the Baseball Insider's legend, Jose Altuve to you, mister. Yeah.
Jose Altuve, the king who got an extension, maybe earned himself an extension with an appearance on the Baseball Insiders. Never forget. I'm telling you. Yeah. We asked him and there was no talks. And all of a sudden, right before the season starts, he ends up getting that long-term deal where he's going to end up finishing his career here in Houston. So good for him. But yeah, I'll tell you, Jose Altuve, Hall of Famer, right? Easy Hall of Famer. And measuring stick for me, if the Hall of Fame plans on disregarding the trash can folks, we'll know. But it feels like they're already punishing Carlos Beltran for that, and he's probably going to get in year 4. So maybe Altuve has to wait a year, but I doubt it. it's going to be 3,000 hits. He's going to be at, 300 homers. Like he's in immediately for me.
Oh yeah, and everyone's on the record and saying that even he is that he wasn't a fan of doing all that stuff. So like I think that's going to help his legacy out, but just good for him. And having him guide the ship is kind of one of the reasons why I'm so high on that team. Plus, I eventually think that bullpen's going to turn it around because having Josh Hader and Ryan Presley in the back 9 or the back 8 and 9, I think they'll end up being fine there.
100% agreed. We're aligned on that. Do a couple quick hits throughout the league, news and notes from the weekend. Spencer Strider, I think a lot of us assumed out for the year. A lot of the last episode we did was focused on Braves probably going to lose Spencer Strider, but it's official. He had an internal brace, not quite Tommy John, but pretty close. It's like an Athletic Brewing beer. It's not beer, but it tastes like it. He's going to be out for the season. It's certainly not good news for the Braves that it's one procedure over the other. Does this change your NL East pick at all or National League pick? Because I know a lot of us had sort of Braves being the team that could challenge the Dodgers.
So this is one thing, like I had the Phillies winning this division, and I also have the Phillies winning the World Series this year. So like obviously losing Spencer Strider is a huge deal for the Braves because he is one of the best young right-handed pitchers in baseball, and for some was the favorite to win the Cy Young in the National League here. And not having him places even more questions in a rotation that I felt had some concerns entering the season here. And I think it puts the Braves in a position where they can roll with what they got. They're obviously placing a lot of pressure here on Chris Sale, who they acquired in the offseason and then extended. But with Alex Anthopoulos, you can never rule him out going after some names in the trade market. And it makes you wonder, could they end up trying to hit up the Marlins about some of their starting pitching? Would they be interested in an in-division trade? Could they explore other parts of the market? Like, who knows? But one thing about Anthopoulos is, one, he's relentless, and two, he ends up finding a lot of deals that some people just don't have on their radar. So for me, I think the Braves are a candidate to do that. I haven't heard of anything brewing or anything imminent there. I want to stress that by when I say that, but also with Anthopoulos, and especially the Braves Foundation, you can always expect the unexpected because he's always working. He's always working.
Marlins, if you're going to make an in-division trade, be careful. That's my only word of advice for you. But yeah, you should be open for business. If Alex Anthopoulos calls, don't hang up. You got him kind of desperate now. You got him a little desperate. He thought he had Spencer Strider. He thought he had a healthy and active and high-level Max Fried. And right now he doesn't quite have either thing. So if you want to extort him for Jesus Luzardo, you should be open to it.
Oh, absolutely. And like, they should be open to it, but man, oh man, I'll tell you, if they end up, this is just ultimate doomsday scenario. This is not me reporting anything. This is just me speculating, but let's say they end up getting Luzardo from the Marlins, and he ends up haunting the Marlins for like the next decade. How will that make that fan base, which is already hurting right now after this slow start? How would that make them feel? Because that would be tough. That'd be real tough.
A fan base that I haven't heard enough from so far this year because they just feel defeated. Because this is the one year that they didn't tear it down, really. They lose Soler, but they mostly keep a playoff team intact. And because they tore it down from the inside, because they took Kim Eng and undermined her, they look like hot garbage, except for a couple of dudes, except for Jake Berger. So, worst of luck to the Marlins ownership. Sorry, but you might have to entertain becoming a trade deadline seller earlier than you thought. And there's a nice fit there in Atlanta. Speaking of a trade deadline candidate who could move, Tommy Pham, welcome to Charlotte, North Carolina, the AAA home of the Chicago White Sox Knights. Playoff darling last year, one of the most important players on the NL champions, somebody who we were all talking about in October and November, one of the best hitters on a burgeoning young team. Finds work on April 14th, and it's a minor league deal with an expectation of promotion to the worst team in baseball. Talk me through this.
Yeah, I was not so surprised at all to see it be the White Sox because I had heard a few days ago that they were getting close to an agreement, and that the big holdup was just the language in the contracts. I didn't get any specifics in what the language was, but clearly it had to have been the minor league deal here because for them, like it makes sense for the White Sox to do this because had they ended up signing him to the major league roster, then outrighting him to the minors, that would have put him, I would put him on waivers, and they could have ended up losing him. But if in doing this, they can get him to the minors, get him some minor league at bats, and then they can get him up to the majors, showcase him, and then potentially try to trade him at the deadline. And he screams a trade deadline candidate. And I think smart GMing by Chris Getz, who also ended up signing Mike Clevenger, who could end up being another trade deadline candidate. Who knows? But Pham getting a minor league deal, if you would have told me that entering the offseason, legit stunning. I mean, never in a million years did I see that coming, especially with the postseason that he had, the rave reviews he had from Diamondbacks players and also from Steve Cohen and the Mets. I thought this offseason was going to be better for him, but it was somehow worse, and he ended up settling for a minor league deal. So it's the reality, but he becomes perhaps the most obvious candidate to be moved in July.
I recommend everybody read Lords of the Realm, a classic baseball book by John Hellier. It's about the labor disputes and free agency that shaped the game in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And there was certainly one year there in the mid-80s where there was no stated collusion, but it was Peter Ueberroth, the commissioner, basically saying, hey, you owners know what to do about free agency. I don't have to tell you. Why don't you just go do it? And all those owners basically decided, we are not signing anyone's free agents. They are all going to come back to where they were before. Nobody offer anyone a deal better than the crappy deal that we are offering our own players. This offseason feels more like that than any I have experienced. And not saying that there needed to be a bidding war for Tommy Pham in excess of $12 million for 3 years, but just saying a minor league deal with the worst team in baseball on April 14th, meaning he knows he's going to have to pack his life up again in mid-July. He's not finishing this year on the Chicago White Sox, and he's starting it in Charlotte. Like, it's a very sad, that's a sad ending.
Oh, it's an extremely sad ending. And like the fact that it came to this point is just, it's mind blowing to me. But it's his reality. And it's also, I mean, we still have some really good players that are still unsigned too. We have Brandon Belt, who's still out there and who's on the record with also saying that like his market has sucked. Just a really puzzling offseason, has had a lot of people in baseball on the agent side asking like what the heck is going on with that. But nobody truly knows. But the fact that Pham got a minor league deal, that Brandon Belt's still unsigned, it's pretty puzzling.
And we thought it might end when the season began, not even close. In fact, it's resulted in Jordan Montgomery dismissing his agent and several players still being on the market, underwhelmed by the market. More to come. And speaking of on the market probably all year long, Julio Teheran, who we were talking about as, hey, we know he's going somewhere, we're not positive where that's going to be, ends up a Chicago Cub. But that doesn't feel like the end of his road either, to be perfectly honest. Cub now, was a Met for 5 seconds. Over under teams he plays for the rest of the year. Like, are we confident he's just I'm sorry. I don't know if he's going to make it to September in Chicago. We know Craig Counsell has had him in the past. We know David Stearns has had him in the past, but it does feel like he is this year's candidate who's destined to sort of go fill needs and then go on to another opportunity.
Yeah, I think my guess is it's going to end up being I think he'll be on some more teams throughout the rest of the season here. But I will say, like, it caught me off guard when the Mets DFA'd him, but I apparently his deal was non-guaranteed. So I guess that makes more sense, because when they ended up signing him, it was for a few million, which I thought that meant he was going to be there the entire year. Then he makes one start, stinks, and gets DFA'd. I don't know what his contract necessarily is with the Cubs. I don't know if it's guaranteed or non-guaranteed, but if it is non-guaranteed, maybe it's a similar situation to what happens with the Mets. But he does have a lot of fans with the former Brewers, in terms of David Stearns with the Mets, now Craig Counsell with the Cubs. He obviously has a history with also Milwaukee, so who knows what could happen there if he can end up being a candidate there in the future. But I'm curious to see how he does with the Cubs and if it's better than his time with the Mets, or the short time, I should say. But it's a flyer. It doesn't hurt. And if it doesn't work out, they can move on. If it does work out, then they got a veteran player for relatively cheap.
A lot of flyers going to be taken for the rest of this year, I would say, throughout the game, especially with all these pitching injuries. And Tehran is going to be well-traveled, in my humble opinion, as well. Two final shout-outs, final thoughts before we go. One, it broke during this show that Yankees broadcasting legend John Sterling is probably going to announce his retirement on Friday. I promised you 25 minutes ago we'd be done with the Yankees, but I think that's an important one to say. Voice of my childhood, voice of a lot of people's childhoods, and everybody else hates him because they hate the Yankees. So you don't hate John Sterling. You hate that he loves when the Yankees win because you do not like when the Yankees win. If he actually was the guy calling the games of your team, you'd love every minute of it, and I did, except when I was driving home and he would tell me that somebody hit a home run and then he would say it was caught at the wall. I didn't love that.
No, that's the ultimate tease.
Yeah, that experience was no fun, especially when you're on the radio and you don't have the television to tell you what's going on. But I wouldn't trade it. John Sterling, you're a legend. And then number two, shout out to the A's. The Oakland ? A's. I know John Fisher is going to let us down again. I know Mason Miller, Shea Langoliers probably getting traded before the move to Sacramento. Sacramento never gets to see any of the A's best players. They reload again. Zach Geloff, pack your bags. But this is kind of a frisky 7-9 team right now, and one that definitely does not deserve the indignity of moving to non-Major League Baseball digs for the next 3 seasons. It makes it all the more unfair that we're not even giving them a chance. The more I think about the Sacramento baseball, the angrier I get, because you fight your whole life to get to the bigs, and all of a sudden you have to go back to a AAA clubhouse for half your games, AAA facilities, and if you're a non-free, first of all, why would any free agent sign there? Second, if you're a non-free agent type, you're just stuck in subpar facilities, and your uniforms don't feel Major League caliber anymore either because Nike ruined that. So now a lot of your day-to-day sort of feels AAA, doesn't it? That sucks. But the team is doing the best they can so far. Do I think they're going to finish the season ahead of the Astros? No, I don't. But frame this, print it in ink right now. The Oakland A's ahead of the Houston Astros in the standings. But now, are you even still a believer that the Vegas move is going to happen, by the way? Like, are they going to be the MLB's Arizona Coyotes? Are they going to get whisked to Utah in the middle of the night? There was a survey that said Vegas doesn't even want this team or think they are going to finance it. Like, I don't think we know anything about the future of the A's franchise right now.
No, I don't think we do, because they're a team that you'll believe it when you see it. And they have so many different promises. They're an ownership group who is about as inept as it comes in baseball. I think that's a pretty fair and safe thing to say. And there's just so much uncertainty surrounding that team that I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think anybody in this world knows what's going to end up happening there. And the only thing that we really do know is that the Sacramento thing is going to happen. And it's just truly a bizarre situation. I feel bad for Oakland fans, because their team has basically just been resorted to a laughing stock, and it should have never gotten this bad, but it has gotten this bad. And John Fisher and that ownership group is to blame for it. And put it lightly, he's probably the worst owner in baseball. I think that's a very, very safe thing to say. And this entire thing has really kind of underscored that.
The worst part is that we can't, he's working in conjunction with the commissioner. We can't even no confidence vote him. He's going to stay the owner of the franchise. We're not getting rid of this guy. All he's done is egregious moves that I think a lot of people in baseball agree with, which makes me roll my eyes in displeasure. But you know what it is? Shout out to the players on the field. Shout out to Mason Miller, who I think throws 110. You look good. You look very good.
104 miles an hour. How about that? Crazy, isn't it?
How about that? Well, we'll see everybody on the Baseball Insiders on Thursday. We'll see you on the All-Star Zoom later that evening. Should be on for that. We'll send everybody a link when we can. Hopefully, the A's are still in third in the division. That'd be nice. I'd like to see the A's continue looking frisky. Those fans deserve it. Go support your A's on the road. Don't go to the Coliseum, and don't go to Sacramento next year. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe Sacramento local is good for you. I don't know. I'm Adam Weinrib. We'll be right back here on Thursday, 3:30 Eastern. Robert Murray, thanks as always for joining and helping me break down the week's action.
No, hey, we did it. We got through another episode. It was a good one. We appreciate everyone who tuned in. See everyone Thursday. Adam Weinrib, I appreciate you, good sir.
Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody joining us. Shout out to the crew in the comments and the listeners online and the viewers after the fact. We love you too, but join us 3:30 Eastern for the live streams every Monday, Thursday, until Thursday. Take care, everybody. We'll see you.
Thank you, everybody.